The pandemic hit us hard in 2020, changed everything, at least for a little while. We can argue over the politics of it, you and me, no shortage of that now, but I bet we won't disagree that the day-to-day for most of us shifted from week to week when COVID hit. Maybe you got sick. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you lost somebody. Maybe you and yours emerged unscathed. But the landscape changed. Faces got masked, some businesses locked up, some joints shut down. Schools went home, film sets stumbled or closed. Artists went online, concerts got rain checked, parties went underground. Depressives depressed, and lonely people lonelied. And we can debate the science if that's your thing, but we'd agree it was harder to find inspiration and comfort in the immediate warmth of our respective congregations, either the church of your choosing or that familiar bar down the street that knows your pain. They say we're at the end of it, this plague. Soon we'll be open again and trying to put it all together. We'll bounce back. We have to. And now, more than ever, we need to be connected. Salewon is an Oklahoma City-based singer-songwriter and a talented multi-instrumentalist. His life has had tragedy and travel. His is a story of growth and evolution. He's romantic in his songs and reserved in his interviews. Present in both are some soul and some polish. And he carries a soft-spoken gravitas reserved for thoughtful introverts.
At the age of 13, my father and with the whole family, we were left with the decision to figure out a way to make our lives better. Because roughly at the age of 10, we lost our mother. And so that transition to a better life, or whatever that is, was what spiraled this move. But coming to Oklahoma was never my decision. I had no say as far as where I should be at. The idea of just moving or doing things that would essentially give a new start to something was all that appealed to me. It didn't matter if I were going to Russia that same year, but it turned out we made our move to Georgia, then Texas, and finally settled in Oklahoma. It looked like a good place to start a family, start over.
Now, where were you living before that?
So prior to that, I was living in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, West Africa. Living there was a great life. You don't really know what you don't know. There was no comparison. There was limited exposure to media at that time. Sure, I could watch a couple movies. I could get a feel for what's out there in the world, but home was always home. And so I felt great, but I also wanted an adventure. And I didn't have to ask, really, but...
You were given the adventure.
I was given the adventure. Yeah. So it was wonderful, that whole transition. And then I came to Oklahoma, and I've always enjoyed playing music. Singing was my first love.
Well, when did that start?
It started when I knew I had a voice. So, backtrack, my dad actually plays music as well.
Okay.
And so when he released his album with this band, I'd sometimes sing along with him, obviously in the shower or wherever it is that I'm able to sing, not on the record, of course. And so he saw that, and he was also a pastor. He'd give me the platform, and I'd go up to the stage and sing one of his songs. And with the feedback from the audience and my love for creativity, I decided, well, why don't I learn something else too? Just play the drums and play the keys, because he had all these instruments available. Being the pastor, he had access to the church. So all of that just sort of spiraled into this 13-year-old kid wanting to explore even something deeper with this gift that's been bestowed on me.
I've said too much once again. This time around, you smiled at me. I'll pick you up at 8.
We met up at Pony Boy, a place empty and quiet, familiarly apocalyptic in the heart of a pandemic. Stephen's musical talent is immediate and undeniable. His vocals rang clear and warm in that empty bar. He claims a range of influences, this consistent for artists seeking to find themselves. And this rich palette is evident if you dive into his catalog or just sit still and listen. His songs have an instant spark to them. There's a warmth and a soothing pop transcendence present. If he was alive in the 80s, his tunes would have been on a lot of Love-Struck mixtape lineups, and if he was playing in the 90s, his name would have been oft sharpied on a Bird Let's Hook Up song CD. Listen to his tunes and you can tell that he soundtracked some weddings and maybe a honeymoon or two. Maybe saved a breakup or 3 on the road to now.
Before I made the transition here to high school, I was in boarding school, and we had our own choir, and I would sometimes lead, and learning these choral songs with the choir and these amazing Pentecostal songs. It was good.
I mean, obviously, the music that influenced you earliest and that you were performing and really involved and engaged with was spiritual music.
Yeah.
When did you start listening to any sort of secular music?
When I came to the U.S., I put on the radio, and the first thing I heard that spoke to me was John Mayer, Bigger Than My Body. Not because of the lyrics, but because of the chord progressions. It is a beautiful soundtrack.
Okay.
That tends to be my method of figuring out if a song is quality, to me.
So, like, you're a music first before lyrics?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not going to judge you on that.
Hey. Well, because they're open to interpretation. That's the way I perceive lyrics. And so I hear also the melodies, of course. Now, when I heard Bigger Than My Body, the chorus line obviously holds a lot of weight, just the concept of something's bigger than you. And, but I never, like you said, never really put so much thought into it. But then I started to just get inspired by the skill that he put towards that. And then I explored John throughout the whole album and see what it was all about. And started to get into songwriting after that. And just like cheesy love songs, man. I went all in. It was bad.
Really?
I mean, there was a point where I had lyrics on, just all over the place, and my dad would look at them and say, "What is this?" It's like, and so it's like, who are you writing to? Who's this person you love?
Right. So how old are you at this point?
Well, like 15, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you playing guitar? You're playing guitar?
No.
Okay.
Guitar came in late. This was after I graduated high school. There was this place called Galileo, now known as, I think, Picasso. And it's right by the Paseo area. I would go there for open mic sessions. I'd bring my huge Casio keyboard and just play there. But then whoever would play next after me would just, have an acoustic guitar, easy setup. And so I thought, well, this is a very cool instrument. There's really nothing stopping me from it. And I stand out like a sore thumb, playing the keys and whatever. And so there was a part of me wanting to be part of the group, but also curious about this new instrument, right? So I picked up a guitar and started playing cover songs, writing, doing the Wonderwall and the good old 4-chord progression songs, and just grew from there, really.
Speaking with Stephen, his voice low and warm, I got the impression that this was not only a man who's seen a lot, but he took the time to watch and made a point to remember. There's a seriousness to him, a wisdom, an age beyond his years, which I can say with perspective because I'm older than he is. We finished up our interview at the Copley off of 23rd. The owner let us in due to her fondness for the artist. He's played here before, made an impression.
I want to write something really chill. I will go to the piano, for example, play something really moody, get pads, synth sounds, something like that, or a simple piano sound, and follow a slow pace and melody and see which one appeals to me. As far as the lyrics, it's usually incoherent at first. It never makes sense. But there is always something in the incoherence that is a subconscious message to me. So it could be something like I'm writing about, I saw a chair and he spoke to me and we were dancing at midnight. Whereas dancing at midnight is the only thing in that whole process that I hold on to. And everything revolves around that word. Or, I become this technical guy, I write an objective, this is what I want the song to be about. The most recent release, You Belong With Me, was definitely that process. It was something very technical. I wanted it just easy chord progressions, something that people are used to listening to, for example. But I knew that it needed to be a love song. It needed to have a certain message that was very divine and pure and sweet. I feel like if that's a recipe for success, however, I don't want it to be at the expense of how I feel as far as just going with the flow. Because when you start writing being technical about everything, it's almost as if you have an end goal, which, as opposed to enjoying the process, that changes the whole dynamic of why I love it in the first place. Like a mixture of both is ideal.
Tell me about the first song that you ever wrote.
Okay.
And was it any good?
I think the words are, I love you, I miss you, I need you with all of my heart. Who?
That's very strong.
It is very strong. It's like, we're talking stalker level strong.
Yeah. How old?
Well, so I think I was 15, and I don't know, man. It was something that needed to come out. Eventually, something cheesy had to come out of my mouth, and putting it on paper and saying, this is me thinking of something that I perhaps want. Having to process my youth and say, hey, okay, I think I want to love someone, and I want to need someone, and so maybe, okay, let's go with that. And obviously, it spiraled in ways that I'm able to write more sophisticated songs now.
Because your music, there is such emotion in your performances, and there is such emotion in your songs. They're very touching. And this might seem like I'm accusing you of fraud, and I'm not, but like how much of that is you? Like, do you wear your heart on your sleeve that much? Do you feel that much, or is that something just a part of you that you're able to tap into?
For example, You Belong With Me, the opening line is, I said too much once again, and this time around you smiled at me. None of that has ever actually happened, to the point that I can pinpoint a certain conversation that I had with someone, and I was like being a smart ass or whatever, and to the point that it led to a romantic relationship. So, I have to be very artistic, and I have to weave things in to make it more interesting. There are certain truths within the lyric that I actually can relate to personally. Mm-hmm. the overall picture, the concept of love is it's as universal as childbirth or language. Sometimes there's a message within that. It's like, for this song was, I don't want to let go of someone that I cherish. And the act of letting go has, a lot of layers in my personal life. Whether it's the loss of a family member, or someone that you truly admire and you see a future with. And so writing that on paper can be very difficult sometimes. But having to weave it in a way that's creative and people appreciate that, storytelling then becomes a very tricky art that, some will love it and some just might find it just a little too cheesy for them. But, that's what the world is about. You just kind of find your own circle and find those who love it.
Our foolish heart is wise enough to learn from some of our mistakes. A risk I'd love to take for our future's sake. God knows I'm getting tired of make-believe and bandages. So if you're here to stay, I'd love to hear you say you belong with me.
The sacrifice to own your craft and
I won't let go.
want to just be a better person, a better musician, a better whatever it is of yourself. It requires that you dedicate time to learn and master your art. And I find that I've sacrificed a lot of, whether it's friends getting together and things like that that could build relationships.
Yeah.
Those things are things that I truly value that would be transcribed or translated to paper as far as what I want or however I feel when I want to narrate a song that embodies that thing that I actually miss.
Right.
Enjoying the moment has been something I had to then transfer that energy of craving. But I would say that despite that, I've gained so much more just understanding myself. So that is much more fulfilling, to the point that where I have to weigh those two and say, okay. And so I find that balance, being content, okay with the state of whatever's happening, just embrace it all. And understand that whatever it is that you think that should be the ideal, that ideal might not apply to my life because I'm reflecting because I think that's what it should be. This is the ideal person because maybe probably what I see on media, social media, with people with hanging out with friends and hanging out and doing things and going hiking and all that fun stuff. It's like, oh, that sounds pretty nice. I bet, it's like I bet they had a good time.
Yeah.
But I'm limited to these certain things that I have to do to keep going because my path has led me to this point.
There's a Steve Earle song where he's talking about how he wanted to get out of town, so he bought a car, but then he had to keep a job so he could pay for the car, so then he never got out of town. And it's kind of that whole, like, you're missing out on these experiences that you'd be writing songs about while you're writing songs about something else.
Yeah, a buddy of mine who moved to Nebraska, he wanted to literally start a tour and just go all over the place. And I said, well, he asked me, do I want to tag along? I was working at a grocery store at the time, and I was like, oh, there's a trajectory. I can become a manager, and I can do this. But the most important thing why I declined his offer was because my family was here. I was very close to them. These certain decisions, these compromises, I mean, that's also part of it, too. I think maybe I needed them more than they needed me at that point in my life. But those sacrifices were things I had to make to and so I miss that.
When we finished the interview, we stood around the back and talked and joked. Steven kicked around a soccer ball with one of our crew members, and he seemed to lighten up even more when he wasn't having to talk about himself. The humility was endearing.
I can create all day and not release anything, just because it's more therapeutic for me than anything else. Performing is great, don't get me wrong. I love performing. I love the feedback that I get from people. But being an introvert, at my core personality just allows me to appreciate that and know that I found something and that it clicks and that it's going to just make my life much happier than it was 5 minutes ago, whether it's a chord progression or just writing and saying, oh, wow, this is a very neat concept that I hadn't thought of. My song process is really around two themes, love and grief. Something I can relate to. The essence of art being this whole human life, whatever this is to connect. And so the evolution of that is you have a brand, something that people expect of you, right. Correct? Right. The concept of music is equivalent to food to me. I cannot stick with one genre because someone wants me to.
Right.
And that hurts in a way that you have to brand yourself in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge, right? When I started off on the keys, it was as basic as a songwriting process could be, and then you evolved to the guitar. Translating those songs that I wrote on the acoustic guitar into synth creates it's a different vibe. And so imagine you've been a long life fan of mine and you hear this song that spoke to you on the acoustic guitar, and then because I no longer feel like following this brand, I evolve and start playing the same song in the synth. I'm not sure that you would appreciate that.
Right.
So that's the challenge. The essence is just to communicate the words, the melody, because I said earlier, that the melody is what speaks to me first. And so finding that balance and saying, okay, guys, I've evolved, can you grow with me? Is where I need to be. That's the brand of evolution. Right.
Steven says his brand is evolution. As an artist, he grows and changes, develops and evolves. But his goal is connection. Warm and soothing and interpersonal and true. Now, more than ever maybe, in a world bursting apart at the seams, is this an endeavor worth taking? Now, more than ever, we need to be connected.
Pull me in, I wanna stay, but all I see is black and gray. You want my art from miles apart, but closer in the dark. It couldn't be alive. I'm undone while you stay in his arms, and you tell me what you want. You wanna be a queen, my damsel in distress. Oh, it's enough. I never really wanna let things go to rest, but this time I've gotta throw it in. I've gotta let you go. Gotta give it up, gotta give it up. Ooh, I've gotta move on. I wish it ain't so. Don't wanna waste my time. Well, if you can cannot run. I'll lend you my wings. Though you are strong enough, I'll heal your wounds. But I still see the scars. When I played the real, I saw a picture perfect lives on my mental screen. These delusions of a foolish heart is a deadly sin. You would know. If you really love me. If you really love me. If you really love me. Come on now. If you really love me. Oh, if you love me. If you really love me. Oh, well, I've got to throw it in. I've got to let you go. Gotta give it up, gotta give it up. Oh, I've got to move on. I wish it ain't so. Don't wanna waste my time.